Welcome to another installment of Wings with Jeff. Today we're doing Wings Stop. We'll get into the wings in a minute. And in these series of conversations where we're looking at how to live the Christian life like Jesus did, as he's the greatest of all time, one of the things we're going to be talking about today, which for some of you is just such a strange phrase because it was coined by religious people, and religious people make strange phrases, is Jesus is friend of sinners. So we're going to talk about what that means. And to do that, we've been looking at talking with different friends of mine who I think are really good in the areas that we're talking about. And Patrick Kelley is a good friend of mine. And thank you so much for doing this.
I don't know how I got. Okay, we're going to need somebody to talk about sinners. Who's the biggest sinner we got? Okay, let's get Patrick. He'll do it.
Totally. Yeah,
that's how I got this job. Okay, got it.
So Patrick, you are a fellow pastor, very similar church to Chase Oaks, Riverpoint in Houston. And in fact, we became friends over sitting across from each other at a table.
Yes, we did.
And I got a coffee shower.
Yes, I did. It's the only time in my life that somehow when I took a drink of coffee, a ground got in the back of my throat and immediately reflexed by spitting up on Jeff. That's how we first met. And we still are friends, so it was a bonding experience.
It's only gotten better from there. So let's talk wings a little bit. Yeah. This is Wingstop.
Yeah.
And so it goes up. This one right here is the atomic. So we'll maybe look at that one at the end. I think for you, that's this one.
This one here, yeah.
I'm going to start with a lemon pepper.
Okay, I think this is my lemon pepper. We'll try that. And, love wings.
Uh-huh. And you can't go wrong with Wingstop.
That is good.
Places, but they're just Wingstop.
I'm going to have it all in my beer. This is perfect. We'll have it for later.
Okay. Speaking of beer, reminds me of Jesus, so let's start talking. Jesus as friend of sinners, even that phrase, right, is a messed up phrase. We all know that because we're all sinners. It was coined by, the Pharisees and the religious leaders because Jesus spent so much of his time with people that they would never spend time with, and how could a religious person do that? Why do you think it's so hard for religious people, the more religious we get, to just, as a regular part of our life, hang out with people who don't know God?
Well, I think there's a couple things for me personally. I look at my own life and there's this struggle internally that, I used to do some things that were sinful before I knew God. Of course, I still do things, I know God, and I still do sinful things, but it was a little bit more acute before that. Didn't have a conscience about it. And then all of a sudden you meet Jesus and you have this relationship with God and he begins to change you from the inside out. And over time, you kind of quit doing these destructive behaviors, at least as these intense ones. And so any reminder of who you used to be, I think creates fear in the Christian. I think it's like, I used to get drunk, or I used to do that. And all of a sudden it's like, I don't think we realize it in real time, but I think we go, it used to be me, and I don't want to be like that. And so I think we create distance. It's so much easier, I think, to be around a bunch of people who act like they have it all together.
Right.
Yeah. They don't have it all together, but they act like they have secrets and all this stuff too. Yeah. And it makes us feel like, okay, I'm in the right crowd. And so I think it's fear. I think we have fear that somehow in the middle of this thing that we're going to be reminded of, our sordid past or what we don't want to be.
Yeah.
And because of that, we lose connection and relationship with a lost and dying world. Quite frankly.
Yeah, it reminds me of 1 Peter when Peter's writing to these Christians in Rome, which was very pagan thing, people doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And he said, hey, you remember that's how you used to roll, right? And but then he also says, hey, don't be surprised when people are surprised that you're not doing that anymore, and be able to talk about that, which assumes that you're still in proximity with people that are surprised that you're not doing what you used to do, right? And so there's that, hey, I may not be doing some of those same things that I used to do, but I'm still hanging with people. But there is a balance there, right?
There is.
Sometimes you have to make a little bit of a break if you came out of a real, but you don't want to make a total break.
Yeah, the alcoholic doesn't want to hang out with bars. You got to be smart. You got to say, okay, I don't want to be this again, but I don't want to lose connection with people struggling the way I used to struggle, or trying to find hope the way I was trying to find hope. If you're going to be a friend of people and really be used by God, you've got to be in connection with them. You can't shout across the street to them.
Yeah.
You got to be in their driveway watching the kids play. You got to do that. And if that scares you, if you'd rather just hang around with a bunch of Christians then you're never going to really understand really what people are going through these days to find hope in Jesus. I mean, really, and you have all the answers, but you don't understand the process.
Yeah.
And the process is, I got to struggle with where I'm at in order to be open to some new identity as a follower of Jesus. And if you miss that process, then you're just a Christian that has the truth, but the truth is being shared among a bunch of Christians who already have the truth.
Yeah.
And
Probably most of the people listening to this right now are Christians who
Right.
are part of our church. Just from your perspective, even then, like as you're developing relationships with non-church neighbors, friends who don't know Jesus at work or whatever, would you say the first invitation should be, hey, come to church with me?
oh my God, what a terrible thing to do, you know. I'll confess to you, Jeff, because we're friends.
I'm going to try some mango habanero.
Oh, it's great.
But
yeah.
yeah, confess whatever
Okay,
you
here's
want.
the confess. I have lied more than once about my profession. You know, because as soon as people find out I'm a pastor, especially on the golf course, here's how it rolls. So you're on the golf course, you're playing a few holes, you have a bad shot, the guy starts using some sordid language, you know,
Yep.
there's a few beers going down, and about the sixth hole, they say, by the way, what do you do for a living? And I know once I say I'm a pastor, they're going to replay the last six
Yeah.
holes in there,
Shuts it down.
and our relationship's over.
Yeah.
You know, so I just say, well, I'm in kind of sales. How about that? And it usually goes on beyond that. But my hope is to stay connected into that deal. You know, here's what I heard a long time ago, made an impact. People are not going to be convinced you want to spend eternity in heaven with them if you won't spend an evening over dinner with them.
Yeah, that's a good line.
And there's this idea that, man, I tell our people, don't invite them to church. It's too scary at first, you know, although we have a great place for them to land here. It's just, they got to trust you before they'll trust your invitation.
Yeah.
And so that's why, you know, to me, what I'm trying to do is take the initiative. When Jesus, the incarnation, is about God taking the initiative and coming to man.
Yeah.
That's the example. It's like, I think it's up to the believer
Yeah.
to go and make,
Yeah.
not to, you know, hope somebody comes and asks him a question about eternity, you know? That means, like for example, in our church, we never had midweek services. We never really had Sunday night service. We said, get involved with your PTA, get involved with your soccer, get involved with, I coached baseball all growing up. I was the first team dad for my daughter's high school volleyball team because everybody else had a team mom and I was a team dad.
Yeah.
I was the first team dad ever. And it gave me this idea that I'm here to serve the community and I want to be a part of this
Yeah.
community. And Christians have a bad habit of segregating.
Yeah.
And the, you know, here's the truth, I think. Non-believers don't give a crap about all your fun church activities that are so, you know, really neutered. You know, they're just so tame. You know, they don't care about any of that. But they do care if you care about them and you genuinely want to be their friend regardless of how they ever believe.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. People feel targeted. And when they feel targeted, they're done. They feel manipulated.
Yeah.
And so how can we love unconditionally without targeting people? And the story that, you know, we all know very well, but I think there's a passage that most people miss. There's a story with Jesus with the rich young ruler. You know this story, right?
Yeah.
And he says, what do I have to do to follow you? And he gives him this thing. And of course, the rich young ruler had this false sense of his own righteousness, right? And then Jesus put the whammy on him and said, okay, well, I know what's keeping you from me. It's all your stuff. But there's a passage in there that says this: Jesus looked at him and loved him. Mm-hmm. And here's a person that didn't believe, that walked away, and Jesus loved him. And I just wonder how safe we can create relationships with people who don't believe like us and aren't interested in what we do. That could there be some way we could be a friend to sinners without an agenda to convert them?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I think ruins the whole thing. I think it's God's job to convert. Our job is to love.
Yeah.
And that's a safe thing to do.
And even though the Pharisees didn't understand that we're all sinners, and so there's a special category they had, and Jesus was a friend of sinners, they were right. And I think Jesus wore it as a badge of honor. So, you know, you touched a little bit on how this changes the way we think about church. So one, it changes the way we think about our relationships, make sure we are making time for neighbors and friends and coworkers and all that who don't know Jesus, and not just hanging out with church people all the time. But beyond that, as you think about how we do church, that once you understand Jesus' heart for those who he doesn't, that aren't here yet, and that's our mission. I mean, it's the mission that gave birth to the church in the first place. It's not just a place to hang out with Christians, right? We're here for those who aren't here yet. But how does that change the way we think about church? How does that change the way we do church?
Right. Well, here's the thing. I didn't grow up in church. I think that's why I'm good at this, because church people would invite me to church events, and I never connect. I didn't get it. I didn't get, okay, I like pizza like the rest of the people, but I just didn't understand it. There wasn't much fun in church. So I think it changes church that here fundamentally, in the big picture of things, I think if you're going to be a church on mission that really loves people outside the faith, is that you've got to make decisions on your strategy and what you do based on who's not there. Most churches make decisions on what they're going to do based on the preferences of the people who are there.
Yeah.
And so there's this internal battle between, well, I like this and you like that. And what we do, and I think Chase Oaks does it well too, is to say, no, what can we do to position ourselves in a way to be a credible source of help? In terms of help with the gospel, help in life, how can we do that? It's a different decision-making model. The other thing I think churches miss out on, quite frankly, is this sacred ideal of fun. I just think, we're talking about heaven and hell, right? We're talking about serious, eternal things, and nobody's really coming to church on their best day. So everybody's got a problem, right? So, but how can we have a good time? How can we build facilities that facilitate relationships and fun? How can we be not so scared of, being ourselves with boundaries? Obviously, we have boundaries.
But not taking ourselves too seriously.
You can't, because everything we're talking about is so serious, and people are fatigued with that level of heaviness in life. And they're looking for something that they can laugh. I think when people are laughing, they're open.
So in the way we do church, we want to engage people, we want to create fun, we want to, even at our campuses, break things down. One thing that you've done really well as a church that we're learning from is just even the way you create your spaces, the way you've got a petting zoo at this campus. Mm-hmm. I don't know any other church with a petting zoo. How can we engage people right where they're at? Right. And then just meet them there, and where they realize, hey, we're not as crazy or weird or whatever they're afraid of as they think. Right. But talk about how, because we're newer in this, so how do we maximize that opportunity? And
well, I think the term we use around here a lot is, how can we provide non-threatening experiences to build relationships? Just about everything that church represents to people outside the faith is a threatening experience because it elicits change. Yeah. The worst invitation you could ever give somebody to church, hey, you should come to my church, it'll change your life. Nobody's really signing up for that, right? So what we try to create is, everybody likes food. So we have this yard and grill that we're sitting at. And so after every service, we have a meal, and you can, buy your whole family lunch for $25 and sit around. We have these big long tables so that you have to sit with people you don't know and those kind of things. What are those non-threatening kind of things that we can provide that allow a relationship to build? We believe this, I don't know if this is in the Bible, but I believe this, that you have to earn the right to be heard. Mm-hmm. And I think Christians have been so eager, trigger finger almost, of telling the truth or what they know, and let me tell you about Jesus, and I can see how your life is so screwed up, let me help you. I say don't work till you get hired. Don't help anybody until they're asking for help, but how could you stay as close to them as possible, build a trustworthy relationship, knowing that one day, some tragedy, some crisis is going to happen to all of us, and who are they going to run to? You want to be that person they run to because you've earned the right to be heard. Well, having fun is part of that, We do a thing, at first it was kind of controversial, but it wasn't really. What we realized is a lot of guys smoke cigars. I smoke cigars. I like cigars. So we decided
you've tried to help me like cigars.
You're terrible cigar smoker. Seriously, I've never seen anybody turn as green as you. Really, you need
don't
to
inhale thing.
I don't tell people to stay away from cigars often, but you need to stay away. Mm-hmm. Well, what happened was we used to have this thing called Guys Grill Night, and nobody cared about grilling. And guys are really resistant a bit to
Yeah.
group activity anyway. And then I said, well, let's have a steaks and stogies night. And, we had one right here in this space last week, and we had 65, 70 guys come. Now, not everybody smokes a cigar, but for whatever reason, because we put cigars in the name, steaks and stogies, it felt like a safe event for guys. And you can invite friends too,
Yeah.
I mean, hey, we buy cigars, And traditionalists think that's some sort of crossing the line. And we do think there's a line, like we don't have any alcohol at any of our events. Just out of respect for the addict, right? My dad was an addict, so I get that. But so we have a line there for that. But Steaks and Stogies is it was a fun event. It was a great, guys got together. The content was minimal, but the fellowship, the connection, guys were around the grill cooking their own steak. We say, you bring your own steak, cook your own steak. And that's the thing. Sometimes, and churches don't do this very well because everything's so freaking serious, is how do you measure an event? Is it fun? Is that worth it? Is this fun? Most churches measure their events' effectiveness in changed lives. Well, changed lives today is a process.
So when somebody who doesn't know God, who's on a journey, that's a big step going into the doors of church. That's a huge step, right? If you're not churched.
Yeah.
So, so just talk a couple minutes about how should we do church in a way that considers them.
I think the thing that you have to do on every week in your service is acknowledge that crowd of people that's there that don't believe. Hey, we know some of you are here and this is your first time and you're nervous and anxious and we want you to relax. We want to be your friends. Or we know some of you are here, a lot of you are here and you don't know what you believe yet. Man, you're in the perfect place. Affirm their decision to take the risk to come to a place that they don't quite understand. And I think acknowledging that we see you. We see you. We know you're here. We see you. We expected you, and we're so glad you're here. That sincerity that bubbles over allows people to relax and go, okay, I don't have to believe, I don't have to conform to fit in.
Right.
I don't have to conform. And so that freedom allows people to process their doubts.
Yeah.
If conformity becomes the mandate, lost people check out pretty quick. I mean, people who are far from God, they just say, I'm not ready to conform. I mean, it's a big step.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, probably anything where you say, hey, you can be one of us if.
Yeah.
Whatever those ifs are,
Right.
get rid of them.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
just be
So
one of it.
for us, our church has got to have plenty of opportunities for people who don't believe to be involved, serve. And it's amazing. People, I have a lady here that's been with us for 10 years. She's a Jewish lady, She says, I love the Old Testament when you teach the Old Testament.
Sure.
She's amazing, but she's not sure about Jesus, although she's very close, she says.
Yeah.
So she's an usher. There's no biblical mandate to be an usher. She helps people find a seat and makes them feel comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
She's a part of this thing in a way that allows us to stay connected and speak into her life. She trusts us. She trusts me. And so we're able to have these very vivid conversations about her identity as a Jewish lady.
And why not? We're all on a spiritual journey somewhere. So why not? Yeah. So I think we should go atomic.
Oh my gosh. Like when they say atomic, I mean, what pepper is that? Do you know?
I'm going to guess ghost pepper. I don't know. But, yeah. You took a bigger bite.
I took the bone.
Yeah, you went for it. I'm not really feeling anything.
It's building.
It is building.
It's building.
It is.
It's
starting.
a slow burn.
It is a slow burn.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hot.
Uh-huh.
Is yours hot?
Yeah.
It's like a slow burn.
Yeah.
And you took a little bitty baby bite. That's
know.
not even a big bite.
That's why I was surprised you really went
Well,
for
I
it.
thought we were going for it. I thought we were men. Okay.
I appreciate your heart.
But I'm going to try this now to see if I can
all
deaden
right.
it.
Man, I just think all of us, right? If we're going to follow Jesus, then we'll do what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And he just kept making a beeline to people who are far from God and hanging out with him.
Here may be a good indicator that you're doing this well. the religious people criticize you.
That's a good point. Yeah.
You know, if you're getting criticized, and when our brothers and sisters are criticizing us, there's this powerful pull to get back in line, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But maybe we view it differently. And we view it as, man, the Christians are really on me for hanging out with people that they don't hang out with. I might be doing this right. You know, I mean, because that's exactly who criticized Jesus. And it's like, okay. So now when the people outside the faith start criticizing you, you got it wrong.
You got to listen.
You got it wrong. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, well, you know, I'm getting ostracized by people I'm trying to love.
Yeah.
You know, how do I do that?
Yeah, and both of our churches get picked on, right? For that, for being the kind of churches we are. And it's like, well, Jesus wouldn't have another kind of church. Like it was the mission that gave birth to the church. And we want to grow people in the faith and all that, but in the context of mission, just like Jesus did with the disciples. I mean, they weren't just in a class. I mean, they were loving people and acting. I mean, that's what you do. So,
I mean, over and over again, Jesus said things like, "I've come to seek and save the lost. I've come for the sick, not the well." You know, if the healthy person doesn't need a physician.
Yeah.
So all that every Christian knows that, but living that out is such a scary, fearful thing because you got to rub shoulders and genuinely love and care about people who don't believe or think or vote like you.
Yeah.
And I just think Jesus earned the right to be heard. By his miracles, by his presence and all that. And he listened.
It was cool with Jesus, and I'll just end on this because we got to end somewhere. Yeah. I could talk forever about this. You could too. Like Matthew's story, if you know that story, he was a tax collector, sinner, right? And the first thing he did when he encounters Jesus, he wants all his fellow sinner tax collector friends to hang out with him because it's like, he's awesome. Yeah. I mean, my friends have to meet this guy. So it seems like that's the big win, right? Not just when we're building relationships with people who are far from God, but when they want us, man, I want you to meet all my friends. Like, then something's going well.
Exactly. Yeah, when you're trusted.
Yeah.
When you're trusted that this guy's not going to get freaky on me and try to convert me. He's just fun to hang. He's a good hang, is what they say. He's a good hang. He loves hanging out and eating wings and having a good time. And so there's something powerful about that I think the Christian has discounted because everything in our life is so freaking serious. Yeah. And so there's something in that.
Well, Patrick, thanks for being a good hang with all of us today.
Yeah.
Thanks
for the wings,
love you,
man.
Appreciate you, inspired by you. And anytime you want to have wings, you let me know. We'll make it happen. So, hey, thanks for being part of this series, and I hope it's just challenging a little bit and encouraging to think about in a more kind of practical, concrete way, what does it actually look like, in this case, to be a friend of sinners? So thanks for being part of it.